Dear respected Thai, beloved community and friends, good morning. Today is Sunday, the 19th of November, 2017. We are in the Dharma Nectar Temple, Lower Hamlet in Plum Village. And today is the second day of mindfulness of our winter retreat 2017-2018. And all our monastic brothers and sisters have come back from having been on teaching tour in various countries around the globe. And many friends have come from everywhere to join us for the 3-month winter retreat or part of it. We have come together to study, practice, work, and play, which are the 4 aspects of the Plum Village tradition. And we shall explore the teachings together, put them into practice together. We shall work and play joyfully and harmoniously together. So this is a time to deepen our practice and to build brother and sisterhood in order to be able to continue to offer the practice to everybody, wherever we go. The Buddha was not born a Buddha. Buddha means to be enlightened, enlightenment. The Buddha was born a human being just like all of us. And that's the good news. It means all of us, we start out like the Buddha, and we can become a Buddha. The Buddha was born as the son of a local Raj, a local ruler, and lived a very luxurious and protected life. But in spite of that, he could not be protected from being in contact with suffering. When going out, he would meet suffering. He would see people who were sick. He wondered what was happening to them. The story goes that in his direct environment, they protected the Buddha from being exposed to sick people. Yeah. Or people who were getting old, couldn't walk anymore. And people who died. But he saw them when he went out into the town. And he was deeply, deeply touched and moved by what he saw. The suffering that he didn't see in his direct environment. He didn't understand. And his attendant told him, you know, but this can happen to all of us. To you too. You can fall ill. You will grow old. And you will die one day. And the young prince called Siddhartha touched the deep suffering in himself and realized this is also what other people experience, suffering. When we are in contact with something, there's a feeling that comes up. And the feeling that came up in Siddhartha was this is suffering. This is suffering. And then, is there anything we can do about this? Is there anything we can do to help relieve this suffering? And this thought then pushed him to want to act, A deep, deep desire to want to understand suffering and to find a way out of suffering. Such a strong desire, he would give up everything, to follow his deepest wish. So he left his young wife and newborn baby boy and set out to find out what is this suffering about, and is there any way we can help to relieve it. On his way out, on his visits to the town, he also met some renunciates dressed in orange or maybe white robes. And they looked very peaceful, calm, And then he thought, that calmness, that peace, that's what I need in order to look deeply into this. So leaving his palace behind, he donned the robes, he became a renunciate. And he set out on his path to look for teachers, well-known teachers. And he studied with a number of teachers and practiced with them for about 6 or 7 years. But he couldn't find the answer to his quest, to his question. What is suffering about? And is there anything we can do to transform it? Finally he decided, okay, I will just do it by myself. I have tried enough. So he went out in the countryside, found a quiet spot and sat down underneath a tree, which later became known as the Bodhi tree, the tree of awakening, because the Buddha sat down and was at a strong, strong volition. I will not get up, I will not leave this tree until I have found the answer, until I have understood. Yeah. That's a very strong determination. All of us, in some way, we are sitting underneath that Bodhi tree. And then one day, as the morning star was rising, the Buddha had a breakthrough. He had a breakthrough. He understood suffering. He had realized what were the causes that lead to suffering. He also understood that once the causes of suffering were understood, he could abandon them, and there's well-being. So he knew there is true well-being, and also saw what is it that leads to well-being. And not only that, he had understood something else. Everybody is able to experience this. Everybody. Except not everybody knows it. So, the Buddha had identified suffering, what it was. He understood it. He had identified the causes of suffering, and he had removed the causes of suffering in himself. He had experienced well-being, and he had identified the path of well-being. And he had walked that whole path until the very end and reached realization, freedom. So we all have this capacity to understand and to awaken. And we sort of know it already, otherwise we would not have bothered to come here. Right? And this winter retreat we would like to look into how to walk on this path of awakening. So the theme or the subject of our studies and practice this winter are the 7 factors of awakening. And also know how to bring them to full fruition, these 7 factors, full blooming. These 7 factors of awakening are very important spiritual qualities, and they're often mentioned by the Buddha. Many of the Buddha's teachings come in kind of groups, 2 truths, 3 Dharma seals, 4 noble truths, 5 skandhas, 6 harmonies, 7 factors of awakening. They come together. And the 7 factors of awakening are both the characteristics of awakening as well as the path to awakening. And because we're going to study a little bit this winter, I would like to write them on the board. It's a list. Lists tend to be boring, but for study they're very practical. Sapta means 7. Bodhi, Anga. But this is not how it's written. The name is actually Sapta. So, Sapta Bodhyanga. Just change the angle of the board. Yeah, thank you. Okay. The pebble over there. Okay. For those who don't see the board, there's the screen. So the 7 factors of awakening. So the 7 factors of awakening, they direct our mind in the direction of awakening. And they help us not to get caught in other things. In particular, the Buddha mentioned the 5 hindrances. Not to get caught in the 5 hindrances. There are traditions who practice a lot with the 7 factors of awakening, and also specifically with the 5 hindrances, not to be caught in them in daily life. So the first one. Mindfulness. We're all familiar with mindfulness. First factor is mindfulness, and in Sanskrit Oh, look, see, smriti. And that's the factor that we will be looking at a little bit more today. The next one is investigation. Of phenomena. Okay. Sanskrit. Dharma. Dharma with a small d is phenomena. Dharma pravijaya. Three is energy. Virya. Ease. Yeah. I hope I have the spelling right here. 5 is joy. 6 concentration. 'samadhi', and 7 equanimity. Affection. So just repeat the 7 factors of awakening, Sapta Bhujanga. Mindfulness is the first one, smriti, investigation of phenomena, dharma pravijaya. The third one, energy, virya. 4, ease, prashrati. And 5, joy, priti. And 6, concentration, samadhi. 7, equanimity, upeksha. So today we're looking at mindfulness. And we're all familiar with mindfulness, meaning being mindful of what is happening inside of us and around us, dwelling in the present moment, in the here and the now. Whenever we hear the sound of the bell, we bring our mind home to our body. We become aware of our in-breath and out-breath. And we know breathing in, I know I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know I'm breathing out. Or more correctly, As the in-breath is happening, I know it is happening. And as the out-breath is happening, I know it is happening. Not only do I know the in-breath and out-breath is happening, but it leads me to some insight. I am alive. And I can smile to life. Whenever we hear the sound of the bell, we practice this, we come back. And by doing this regularly and continuously with every sound of the bell, we generate or we cultivate mindfulness. And mindfulness is something like salt. It is compared to salt. When you put salt in the food, the whole food becomes salty. So when we cultivate mindfulness, our whole body and mind become permeated with mindfulness. Yeah, become mindful. I realized when I was looking a little bit deeper at the 7 factors of enlightenment or awakening, they're known under both names. Mindfulness, yes, of course. Practice mindfulness the whole day, whenever I remember. When we walk, when I eat, when I stand, when I sit. That's mindfulness. I know that in our tradition, we don't use mindfulness as a tool, that we bring out or that we practice in order to achieve something. We practice mindfulness. And then I thought, but wait a minute. Mindfulness, a factor of awakening? I mean, have you ever considered mindfulness like that? Have you looked at mindfulness as a factor of awakening? Awakening consists, first of all, of mindfulness. When that sort of hit me, I thought, aha, but this kind of puts me in touch with another dimension of mindfulness. This is a factor of awakening. Dwelling in the present moment, yes. Knowing what is happening inside and outside, yes. But it's a factor of awakening. Now, tell me, if that doesn't inspire us to practice, what will? Huh? So we're all here cultivating a factor of awakening. And the Buddha was asked, what do we need in order to realize these factors of awakening? And then 3 things I mentioned. Good friendship, spiritual friends. So I would like to say thank you all for being there. Wonderful. Wonderful. I know. Practicing sitting meditation by ourselves, yes, can be very peaceful, but it can also lack a little bit of concentration from time to time. My experience is when we practice with the Sangha, many people practicing, the energy of mindfulness is much stronger. Concentration is much stronger. And the good friendship. Those who encourage us to go to the meditation hall and practice sitting, to come to the walking, to be there for us when we sit, to be there for us when we walk. And on our schedule, we have walking meditation. And I've been sort of reflecting and thinking it's a little bit misleading. It sounds like, from 11:30 to 12:30, that's when we practice walking meditation. But how about the other hours of the day? So I suggested here, in this hamlet that we write on the board something like walking meditation with the Sangha or collective walking meditation, to make it clear that this is where we just all go out as a river, yeah? Mindful walking, but the rest of the day we are little streams and drops of water going in all directions in walking meditation. Yeah. But we do with the whole Sangha and we feel the support. There have been times where, I'm doing some work, and I'm really caught in trying to find a solution for what I need to do. And I come to the Sangha and they're singing songs and start walking. Yes, I'm sort of aware of my steps, but not really present, because my mind keeps going back to what is still on my desk, although I have already closed the door of the office. I carried it with me. And at a certain point, I just said, let me just surrender to the Sangha. And I surrender to the flow, and then I walk. I take refuge in the Sangha and allow their mindfulness to water the seed of mindfulness in me, and to walk and enjoy every step. So good friendship, having spiritual friends on the path. And it is very well known in spiritual circles, especially Buddhist circles, that Thai Master Thich Nhat Hanh always speaks about building Sangha. Well, there's a good reason for that. We would like to realize the 7 factors of awakening, find good friends, get together and practice together. So if you have not yet joined a Sangha, for those who have their permanent residence elsewhere, then when you go home, please check out where there is a Sangha in your area. And if there's not a Sangha around, start one. There are many places where we can put up little notices that says who is interested in practicing together mindfulness in the tradition of Plum Village. Other people in your town, your area, have been waiting for you maybe to put up that sign. Finally, somebody starts a group. So good friendship. Association with the wise. To listen regularly to teachings of the wise. Now we can associate via YouTube. We can listen to talks. And the other is careful attention. Mindfulness. Careful attention. So this means having access to the teachings and a community of practice, other practitioners, studying them, understanding them, and putting them into practice together with others. So let us enjoy a sound of the bell. Bring our mind home to our body. And like salt makes food salty, let the energy of mindfulness make our whole body and mind mindful. Yeah. So we can, if you like, close your eyes as we listen to the sound of the bell. We can lower the center of gravity that may be behind our forehead and lower to our abdomen. When our center of gravity is in our abdomen, we have stability and we have freedom. We're no longer caught and carried away by our thoughts concerning the past, the future, or being carried away by something that's happening in the present moment. We can become aware of what is happening in our body. If we encounter any tension anywhere in our body, we can be with it, without wishing it to go away, allowing it to be. Our body may be wanting to tell us something, and the more we suppress it, the louder it will speak up and make itself known. What is in our body is also in our mind. Taking care of our body is also taking care of our mind. If we can be with whatever we encounter in our body, at a certain point we may see clearly how whatever it is that manifests itself in our body manifests itself in our mind. When our shoulders are tense, we may be stressed, we may be carrying too much. Staying with the tension will release and relax the tension, and our mind will also feel deburdened, calm and quiet. The Buddha gave a teaching called the Four Establishments of Mindfulness, Satipatthana Sutra. And this sutra is kind of very clear instructions on how to practice. And we start with the body. And then the feelings, and then mind, object of mind. I brought the text. And for the objects of mind, the Buddha mentioned, first of all, the 5 hindrances. And then the 7 factors of awakening. And we just said already that the 7 factors of awakening, they help us not to get caught in the 5 hindrances. Yeah. And the sutra ends with the 4 noble truths. This is very interesting, because that was the first thing that the Buddha taught. That was what the Buddha said when he awakened. You know. Whenever the Buddha was asked what the Buddha's teachings were, especially the Buddha was asked metaphysical questions, the Buddha would answer, "I only teach one thing. There is suffering, and there is a way out of suffering." The Buddha was very true to his search. And although everything that the Buddha taught was all about this is suffering and this is the end of suffering. So this sutra, the Satipatthana Sutra, nowadays there are practitioners who learn it by heart in order to know how to put it into practice, to also come to the realization, aha, this is suffering and this is the end of suffering. Before I continue, I'd like to write on the board those hindrances, otherwise you leave the hall and say, yes, we heard about hindrances, but what are they? I want to know how to practice them in order not to be carried away by them. Hindrances, obstacles. First, sensual pleasure. Sensual pleasure. It's such an easy trap to fall into nowadays because we have access to so many things and we are actually bombarded with information. We're bombarded with food for our senses. What we watch. What is offered to us to watch. Yeah. It's on offer. Yeah. We don't have to digest, take, everything that's on offer, even if it says free, In order to be able to do that, we need some mindfulness. To see if I ingest this, where is it going to lead me? Is it going to lead me to awakening? Yes, maybe when I go far into it, I will realize this is suffering. it's not what I want, and then we will go on the path of awakening. But where is it leading to? We can ask that question. The Buddha gave the image of water. The Buddha likes images. And it really helps to remember and see. So sensual pleasure is water that is colored with a dye that becomes colored. So the water doesn't have color, you put some color in it, some dye, and then it becomes yellow or blue or something. That's sensual pleasure. We don't see clearly anymore. It is colored. Whatever we look at is colored by desire. Colored water. Colored with that. Two. Many of us know this one too. Anger. Yeah. Anger is a hindrance to awakening. An angry mind is like boiling water. It's not calm, It's not still. We have a song, breathing in, breathing out. I am blooming as a flower. I am fresh as the dew. I am water, solid as a mountain. I am water reflecting. When we have anger, we don't see anything. We don't see ourselves clearly at all. Our mind is not like water reflecting back to us what is happening. It's boiling water. Boiling. 3. Dullness, aversion. Aversion is I don't like. I don't like. The Buddha said our suffering comes from our likes and dislikes. Yeah? I don't like, I don't want this. I want that. Sensual desire, I want that. Dullness, aversion, I don't want that. Algae, overgrown with algae. It's overgrown with algae, Can't see anything either. Can't see clearly. It's a hindrance to awakening. Awakening is seeing clearly. Here we cannot see clearly. 4. Agitation or remorse. When water is agitated, when we see a lake, can be very smooth, very calm, and then there's a wind comes up, and then there are ripples. So it's not boiling, bubbles and things like that, but it's kind of ripples on the water. That's agitation. stirred by the wind. Five. Doubt. We doubt the teachings, not sure about these teachings. We doubt the teacher. We doubt the Sangha. Not quite sure about this Sangha. When we go to Thai to complain, when we used to go to Thai and complain about the Sangha, which is not a good thing to do. I see some heads nodding. I used to say two things that I know of, obviously, because I heard them. Be the Sangha member you want the Sangha to be. I thought that's a good point. You know, if I want a Sangha like this, I should be the first person to be like I want everybody else to be. Right? At least there's one element in the Sangha then that I can be happy with, hopefully. The other thing would be an imperfect Sangha is good enough. It's good enough. Everybody is doing their best. You know, we're on the path of awakening, shouldn't forget. So, doubt. At the time of the Buddha, there was a Kalama Sutra. People of Kalama said to the Buddha when the Buddha was passing by, "O noble one, what do we do? So many teachers pass through here and they all give a teaching and they all say, this is the teaching, you know, the teaching. Yeah? But they all say something different. So what should we do?" And the Buddha said, listen to what they say carefully and then test it out. And if you see, you know, it gives you the fruit of awakening, then you know what to do and not to do. If it doesn't lead to the fruit of awakening, you also know what to do and not to do. So the words of the Buddha, come and see for yourself, you know, were there in order to dispel, you know, also the doubt in the people. Should we do this? Should we follow that one? This one? What should we do? Doubt. Doubt is muddy water. So when we practice cultivating mindfulness, yes, to dwell in the here and the now, to find peace and solidity, and to be able to look deeply, to see what is present in us. Sensual pleasure? Are we carried away by what is coming in through our senses? Mindfulness tells us whether it's wholesome or unwholesome. So mindfulness is the capacity to see, to be aware of. Sometimes mindfulness is called mere recognition. Yes, that's true. But mindfulness can also be proactive. Mindfulness can say, right, I see that this is sensual pleasure. I can see I'm being carried away by it. And since I have mindfulness, I can be active and do something about it. This is very important. Mindfulness is not just mere awareness. Mindfulness helps us to act. For instance, by changing what we call changing the peg, when we notice that whatever we are in contact with is not beneficial for our awakening, we can pay attention to something else that is more beneficial to our awakening. That is how mindfulness is a factor of awakening. Not just to know, but also to inspire us to act. Mindfulness is very often mentioned together with concentration and insight. Mindfulness, sustained mindfulness becomes concentration. We can look, we can see clearly, we have insight, we know what to do, not to do. Anger. To know we are angry. In our society, anger is considered something something not beautiful. It's considered like being angry is something that should not happen. So when we're angry and somebody comes to us and says, "You're angry," we say, "No, I'm not." But very angrily, we tell them that we're not angry. Because it's so difficult to acknowledge, yes, I'm angry. Because we have this, we are programmed to say anger is not nice, should not be angry. You know, we're human beings. We all have the seed of anger. And when conditions are sufficient, anger will come up. And our practice is awaken to the fact that we're angry and take care of our anger. So we don't allow it to stay too long. So that our anger will calm down and what we call goes back to seed form. Everybody has the capacity, has a seed of anger. It may come up and manifest itself as being angry. And when we allow it to go down, it will go down to being the seed, the potential. Without mindfulness, if we let anger come up often, it will get stronger as a seed, as a potential in us, meaning that it will come up more often as well. We will get very good at being angry. What's your specialty? Being angry. Yes, because we have practiced it, so often, and sometimes maybe a long stretch at a time. We don't want to suppress our anger. We want to recognize it, hold it, be with it. And we can only be with it when our mindfulness is strong enough. Whatever's in our body is in our mind, whatever's in our mind is in our body. So when the story that brought up our anger is very strong, or anger is very strong, the story brought up strong anger, we don't want to stay in contact with the story. Because the longer we keep thinking about the incident, the angrier we get. So let's leave the story to the side and become aware of our body, as we did earlier today. And see, okay, what is happening in my body? Where do I feel any kind of energy? Is there anywhere in my body where it feels like boiling water? Yeah. And then see, what do we do when the water is boiling? Maybe we turn off the gas, right? So we don't go to the source that makes the water boil. No? We leave the story to the side. Yeah. And see, can we just now practice mere awareness of this boiling water feeling in our body. And it's our awareness that will allow it to stop boiling, because it's no longer in contact with what made it boil in the first place. So our mind again becomes like a clear lake and reflects things as they are. And then when we look at the story, we may see much clearer what actually happened. We may even see how we contributed to getting the water to boil so fast. Maybe we can have a sound of the bell. Yeah. When our mind is clear and still, we will be able to recognize the causes and conditions that brought up our anger. Our aversion, I don't like this, I don't like that. Dullness, not seeing clearly, not having a clear mind. Agitation, remorse. A regret, remorse, is something we can learn from. If we look at our remorses or our regrets, we can learn, how can I do better next time? Thai often used to tell us, it is not, that Thai doesn't want us to make mistakes. Thai just wants us to learn something from our mistakes. That's so compassionate. When I look at my life and my life of practice as well, I have not learned much from everything I did well. In fact, I already knew how to do it. Yeah? Well, everything I've learned through my mistakes. They are a source of learning. What have I learned? What have I seen about my thinking, my speaking, my acting? And what could I do instead? That is the learning. And the doubt already say something about it already. Mindfulness is part of 7 Factors of Awakening, and also mindfulness, concentration and insight. As I said, when we look into the hindrances, we use mindfulness to look. We have some concentration, we stay with the hindrances in order to understand. We have the insight, what are the causes and conditions that brought about, the hindrances? And what do we need to do in order to take care of the hindrances? Mindfulness is also one of the 5 spiritual faculties. Also, and when they are realized, they become the 5 spiritual powers. There is an image, and I like this image very much, in the light of the 5 spiritual faculties. That's the image of a charioteer. Somebody who stands in a cart in the olden days and is being pulled by 4 horses. This particular charioteer. And the charioteer is mindfulness. The horses have names. I will just give them in English. Faith. It's a beautiful name, huh? Faith and wisdom. Energy. Concentration. And mindfulness balances faith and wisdom, energy and concentration. If one horse goes too fast and the other doesn't keep up, we're having a problem. Right? So energy says, no, we're developing these faculties, simultaneously. We don't just focus on faith, we forget about wisdom, or energy, no concentration. No, we develop them together. So faith goes with wisdom in the teachings. If we develop wisdom, we get more and more wisdom. No, that's not correct. If we develop wisdom, we have one insight. Maybe you all know this. We do something and we have an insight. Even in daily life, this is the best way to do this. Insight. Somebody else comes along and says, actually, there's also another way of doing it. I have absolutely no faith in the other person. No, this is the way. The way the other person may be doing it could be much more efficient, much better, more joyful, but I have no faith. I'm holding on to my own wisdom. I can't grow. have to develop faith. Of course, this is an example in daily life, but in the practice, we're having an insight. I've practiced sitting meditation and I have this insight. And that's it. This is it. And even when I sit, my mind is not even open to allow another insight to come up. I have not enough faith in my own capacity to deepen my insight. It's like when we climb a ladder, we are on the 4th or the 5th rung. There are many more steps, but we're holding on. We think this is it. We could go much higher, but we're not able to let go of that step in order to take another step. We need faith. Now, what if we have faith and no wisdom? We have a word for that in English. Blind faith. No wisdom. It says it already. No wisdom. Blind faith. We can also become dogmatic. Our way is the best way and the only way. In the 14 mindfulness trainings of the Order of Interbeing, I left them in my hut. I'm not sure whether they're in here. They're not in here. Thai says, we remain open, openness. We do not take, our truth as the absolute ultimate truth. We remain open to other people's insight. We need to have faith that there are other people who may have insight that we don't have yet. That they also have the capacity to come to insight. Our truth is not the only truth. There are other truths. If you would all practice that, I'm sure there would be peace on earth. We still have a little bit to go. Let's start with ourselves. If we can do it, then there's hope that others can do it. Concentration. We can be concentrated, we can sort of be looking at something, and then all of a sudden, been studying a little bit too long, and we're looking at it, and we're only focused on one thing, but we don't really see anything. Although our mind is concentrated on one thing, we have no energy. And what is advice that we do when we have long periods of needing to be concentrated in order to have energy is every 25 minutes to get up, walk around, even if it's for 2 or 3 minutes, maybe even stretch your arms or something. There are offices now where they have this. There's a space where people can go every 20 minutes, 25 minutes, 30 minutes, just walk around and then come back and sit down again. That some knowledgeable people have said already gives us more energy, and we will be able to concentrate and see clearer, better than if we just sit all the time. Energy without concentration. Well, we know, if you have a lot of energy and no concentration, we're all over the place. We're restless. So, energy needs concentration, and concentration needs energy. Faith needs wisdom, wisdom needs faith. And mindfulness is the factor that, has the reins of the 4 horses and makes sure they're going at the same speed and in the direction we want to go into. So mindfulness is not just mere awareness. Mindfulness is also active factor of awakening. Let us enjoy the sound of the bell and cultivate the element of mindfulness as a factor of enlightenment. Many of us have been practicing already for a while, and when there's the sound of the bell, we know, oh yes, this is a moment of stopping to run into the future or back to the past or being overwhelmed by the present. We know all this, and we sit there, we hear the sound of the bell, and we're waiting. And the sound of the bell has died away, and then we continue to do what we were doing. But that's not cultivating the factor of awakening called mindfulness. To cultivate mindfulness means to stop, to be in the present moment, to know what is happening inside and around us, to know whether any of the hindrances are present, are our spiritual faculties present, what is present in us, what is happening inside and around us. So let's enjoy the sound of the bell and practice what is happening inside and around us. As we do this, that's mere awareness. And then we can take some time later, if necessary, to see, okay, how is my mindfulness going to be active? What is my mindfulness now telling me what to do with what I noticed when we stopped with the sound of the bell? What I noticed in my body, in my mind? How am I going to respond to that? Where is this leading me? And where would I like to be led? So let's enjoy the sound of the bell. So the Buddha offered us the Satipatthana Sutta, the 4 establishments of mindfulness. We are establishing something. Yeah? It is a process. Yeah? It's a guideline of the Buddha. And the sutta and the 4 establishments of mindfulness goes very well with the sutra of the full awareness of breathing. When we practice these 2 sutras, we will follow in the Buddha's footsteps, and we can come to the awakening and the insight of the Buddha. That there is suffering and a way out of suffering. The Buddha was asked, and this is recorded in the Four Establishment of Mindfulness, if we practice the Four Establishment of Mindfulness, how long will it take to become enlightened? And the Buddha answered, 7 years, 5 years, 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, 1 year, 1 month, half a month, 7 days. 7 days. Who's here for 7 days? Need a beginner's mind. Yeah? So awakening is available. We need to have favorable conditions. We have good friends around us. We have the teachings. We have everything it needs in order to come to awakening. Part-time awakening is also good enough. Thai sometimes calls us part-time Buddhas. Some awakening into some aspect of our life where we can say, this is suffering. This is suffering. I see it clearly. And these are the causes and conditions that lead to suffering. When I have mindfulness, I can have concentration. My mind will be like clear water, and I can clearly see all the causes and conditions that led to my suffering. And then I know what to do and not to do. I may need to stop feeding myself through my senses. I need to take care of my anger. I need to overcome my likes and dislikes. See that when I have a regret, what can I learn from it? And balance my faith with wisdom. Look deeply in order to recognize the true teachings, teacher, and the Sangha. It is 11:30. I could continue for another hour, but let's go practice walking meditation to cultivate the factor of awakening called mindfulness. When we leave this hall, how do we leave the hall? How do we walk? Can we walk in such a way that we're cultivating mindfulness? Meaning, can we walk and be present in every step we take? Aware of the floor underneath our feet? The way we put down our feet, the energy with which we put down our foot on the ground? Can we truly arrive in that step? Be truly present? And in the other step, the next step, maybe to arrive in every step is very ambitious, so we can arrive every second step. I have to start somewhere. During our time here, we can take the meditation hall as a walking meditation stretch. Thai gave us a practice at a certain point to sign a treaty or a pact with a stretch, a certain distance somewhere, a path, the stairs in our house, the path from here to the dining hall, or from our living quarters to the dining hall or to the meditation hall. And whenever we walked on that stretch, on that piece, that path, to really practice being aware of every step we take. Of course, when we do this here, with everybody here, we may all choose another path. But how about if all of us choose the meditation halls here in Dharma Nectar Temple, in the Dharma Cloud Temple, Foot of the Mountain Temple, Loving Kindness Temple, our 4 temples. Whenever we enter the meditation hall, to cultivate mindfulness by our way of walking, bringing our mind home to our body with every step. Bodhisattva offered the practice of opening a door. It's also a beautiful practice. Choose one door to start with. Yeah. So if we all practice coming back to ourselves, bring our mind home to our body, whenever we enter, walk around and leave any of the meditation halls in any of our 4 temples, we will be good friends together. We will be supportive, nourishing for each other. And we will be developing the first factor of awakening together. We will enjoy 3 sounds of the bell, then we will have announcements, and after that we shall get up and leave the hall. We may or may not remember to cultivate the first factor of awakening together, but some of us will. And if we're here the whole week, we can remember the whole week, the whole 2 weeks, the whole month, the whole 3 months, the whole year. We have good friends on the path. Yeah. Thank you very much for being there, and enjoy the day in Lower Hamlet Dharma Nectar Temple.